Bam! Sticks in the building here as always. So I'm going to keep it pretty simple. When it comes to learning a language, a lot of people are caught up in the concept of, well, what is it actually that you need to know, think about, deal with when it comes to learning a language? And I was discussing this with a few friends of mine who now happen to be INTJs. And, she was telling me, but could you break it down for an INTJ? Uh, like the mentality, like what does it take when it comes to learning a language? And I said, well, to be honest, you have to think of it the way that, and I'm pretty aware of that saying that it's normal is anything but normal for INTJs, but language is melody, and melody is triggered by other things. So if things are triggered by other stuff, you have to kind of work around it. I mean, imagine this. You're basically, when learning a new language, you're basically speaking about what you already know, but you need to figure out the melody or those words that are recognized within the context of those people that speak that language. For example, you can say something in English, and we have distinct ways of thinking about it because we speak English, whilst people who speak some other language, which maybe doesn't have the same root or so on, will think differently about the concept, because language is just a concept, right? You're trying to explain a situation to someone who might not be there, and provide for them some form of mental stimuli, maybe it's called. And that makes it interesting because when you're learning a language, well, we tend to not want to break out of the other concepts that we've been in prior to that. I mean, obviously, it's difficult of speaking of the unknown unknowns, so we just kind of, jump into learning a language and try to figure it out on the way. But I mean, look, here's a few things that are pretty basic, I would say. One, you need to accept that there's data. You just need a bunch of data, and the data could probably help you if it's relevant, because essentially that's what you're going to be working around and being around, I would assume. I mean, if you're a doctor, you would probably want to learn some doctor terms or medical terms. If you have nothing to do with that, don't spend your time trying to learn that in that new language, because you're probably not going to use it. And if you're not using it, it's probably a waste of your time. Um, you get me, right? Now, learning a new language does require data intake, but it also requires a mentality that forces you to humble yourself somehow, because, well, basically looking for the unknown unknowns could be a bit overwhelming. So we obviously start wherever we're at, and people have all these methods of, oh, but watch cartoons or listen to music that you love. And yeah, but why, right? At some point, you'll figure it out as an INTJ that I can't just watch a cartoon because this is not entertaining and it's questioning one's intellect somehow, I would assume. But if you watch cartoons with a mentality of, hmm, this is the lowest amount of grammar that is expected for a child to understand, then most probably it will be the lowest amount of grammar that is expected for a grown up to understand, or anyone else who doesn't identify as a child, right? So, watching cartoons, yes, but watching cartoons with the right mentality makes it even more effective. That's what helps you with just the time frame of, okay, how long time do I need to spend within this language? Now, another thing which is pretty good of a tip, I would assume, is obviously surrounding yourself in the environment, not because it helps just for the sake of helping. It helps, I would assume, because that's data, that subconscious data that's just coming to you. All right, how is that word put together? How is that concept put together? Is that really grammar, or is that just how people within this region speak and express themselves when it comes to this language? So being around and studying it from a holistic anthropology type of lens, I think that is also something that would immensely help someone who's an INTJ learning a language. Another thing with learning a language could have to do with the whole trial and error. Say something, let everyone else correct you, and then hear them out. But don't let them correct you directly, because I don't think that's going to help, because that messes up the train of thought. But tell them to correct you in the sense of, you say something, if they believe that is incorrect, then have them repeat it, but in the correct manner asked back to you. So you would say something wrong, and then they would go, aha, so how is that, ba ba ba, in a correct way? Reason for that is, one, it doesn't really break down the train of thought. It doesn't mess up the flow. And you who is studying the language, obviously you will have a subconscious or a very conscious emotion to understanding if it was correct or not. Now, if the person repeats it back to you and they're saying it in a way that is not within the melody that you presented, well, you'll be conscious of that. And as an INTJ, you'll catch that. So you will actually be more prone to changing what you just said, because now you've understand that, okay, that's how the melody should sound, meaning the language or the correct grammar to be understood in communication. And it doesn't mess anything up. It just keeps going. And you'll notice as an INTJ, if you have people around you that correct you this way, you're also pretty likely to just take it. Another thing which I believe is interesting for INTJs when learning a new language could be to have someone who speaks to you in the target language and you speak to them in your dominant language. Now, I've been looking online, and a lot of people haven't really been speaking of this, what I've found, and link them if you have people who are speaking of translanguaging or people who are speaking about code switching, just link it, right? That's always appreciated by people to find them and read more info. But when you do this, well, first of all, you're more confident, obviously, right? And if the other person does not have that language as their dominant language, well, they get to hear it as well. And that's one thing which I believe is very interesting, because you now practice how you listen to things, and you practice how a person who speaks that language actually expresses themselves. Now, if they understand your context and you understand their context, you don't have to speak the same language. Haha. But if you do, it does make things a bit more easier, so you understand how it can be tweaked within a cultural context or in a language context which is specific for you. Now, that could be good if someone is bilingual or trilingual or any other, or polyglots even, because what happens now is that you get to speak your mind without it being interrupted, and they get to speak their mind without it being interrupted. And most likely, especially if you're on a B1 level, an A2 or B1 level, I think it will be easier for you just to comprehend the context. And I mean, imagine it, when we speak English, it's not like you remember every word that someone has spoken to you. But when you're learning a new language, we tend to have this filter on us. And what happens then is that, well, it gets a bit problematic, because now you're focusing on trying to do it correct. Now, if you're trying to do it correct, kudos. If it's working for you, kudos. But, after the discussion of INTJs and learning a new language, I figured let me make a little short video, and hopefully it helps. Obviously, people, you have other methods. You're trying to spread positivity in another way. Comment, add it, add your links, and let's just help a bunch of INTJs progress, get better, stay more amazing, and just be the best versions of you that you can be. Because, hey, I believe that's the point of INTJs, even trying to do what it is that they do. Anyway, people, stay amazing. Sticks be in the building. Peace.